I've got nothing really for this topic, so you're gonna have to guide it.
Okay. And the ticker has started. So, welcome to Tablebreakers, episode 39. My name is Bruce Lombardo with the man with the hands. And with me tonight is Jade, who is fresh on his YouTube career. Baron G Rock, sitting at 1.2 thousand subscribers. Congratulations, Baron. Shadow and Sun, a newcomer to the YouTube game within the past year and doing fantastic at Racking Men. And Kamal, the Cigar DM, good to see you, sir. How are you tonight?
I am good. And yourself?
No complaints. Tonight, we're going to talk about problematic players and how to deal with them at the table, and or how to replace them, how to recruit and get somebody that will not cause as much friction between yourself and the group. I want to kind of steer this topic a little bit more than what usually we have Jade at the helm on this. Jade, you did a great job last night on Gatekeepers, by the way.
Thank you.
Not many people really think about rations, but when you start getting thirsty in the middle of nowhere, water, that is a big thing. Tonight, I know this isn't probably your forte. I got to ask, when you're running a game and somebody starts giving you friction or their idea of how the table will proceed versus how your idea of how the story will go, how do you as a DM try to compromise or rein that player in, or do you acquiesce and allow them to have their moment?
Are you asking, starting with me or?
I'm starting with you, sir. You're right next to me.
Okay. Man, see, that's a bit of a tricky one. I don't really have a heck of a lot of problem players, but I think that's because I do kind of a pre-screening, and I'm going to be called an elitist, and I don't really think I care. I kind of rank my players based on certain behavior at the table, and it's based on what I'm seeing their behavior that I will either invite them back or I won't invite them back. As I've said it before, and you guys gave me hell for it, but I do look for the S tier players. I've got S, A, B, C, D, and D. D is don't bother calling. So if anyone ever lands in the D category, I just don't invite them back. But the criteria I look for at a game table is, one, you are attentive to what's happening. You know what is happening in the game. You don't have to take notes. You just have to be aware of what's happening. That'll rank you at least in the A category. You keep the crosstalk to a minimum. That's being respectful as a player and to the game master, and also being respectful as a player to your other players. If you're constantly cross-talking the table and constantly getting off topic, that's going to drop you down to at least a B. Like you just are not there for the game. You're there to hang out, and that's fine. If that's the kind of game you want to run, you can just hang out. But you have to be respectful to the people around you, including the game master. And if the game master is focused in on another player for what their role play section or their turn, you have to respect that. And if you don't respect that, based on my tier system, I'm dropping you a peg. Now it's going to take time for me to develop where what your ranking is, but if you are there to just hang out, you don't care about the dice, you don't care about the game, you know what? You're probably a C player. You're here as a casual. You don't really care about what's happening. You're just here to hang out with friends. And again, you can have casual games can be a lot of fun. I'm not saying they can't, but that's not the kind of players I look for. So again, I do a lot of pre-screening on the players I have at my table based on what I'm trying to accomplish with the game. So, does that answer your question?
It does, and that opens up a little bit of discussion later on, because I would love to go further on some of the aspects that you mentioned there,
If you don't mind. If you're okay with that.
Yeah.
And I'd like to say hola there, Mr. D. Jodeci. And for those of you that are living in the
north central Illinois area. Between Peoria and Kankakee, you can occasionally find Deej and a tractor streaming on YouTube. He literally farmer streams. It's awesome. Hola, Darren P. All right, next up is you, Garrett. When you have a problematic situation at your table, it's being started by one particular player. What exactly are the things that you do to alleviate it, or do you just kind of roll with it? Do you kind of irritate that player a bit? Do you work at them a little more to try to get some sort of compromise? How do you handle this?
Well, myself, I usually try to aggravate the hell out of him because if he's aggravating my table, I want to aggravate him. So, and it's not like a malicious type thing. It's more of a, even if you've talked to them a few times and they still continue to do it, sometimes, it's just, and of course, this isn't the right thing to say, but sometimes you got to spank the kid. And, that's why you irritate them. You do more than just slap them on the hands and go, okay, well, this is not what you need to do. And, yeah. But overall, I really have not run into this except for maybe one time. And it was more that the person annoyed other people at the table, not necessarily me. And they brought it to me. So, and that's the thing. Is that it may not be that they have annoyed the GM, but they may have annoyed other players. So, as a GM, you have to work out that dynamic at the table. If people are getting annoyed if there's 2 or 3 people that are getting annoyed with one person, you have to look at which is going to be the worst loss: those 2 or 3 people or that one person. And to use the old adage, Star Trek adage, the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few, and you've got to cut them from your table. And I'm not saying it's the easiest thing to do, but I mean, if you do enjoy the way that they game and everything else, and if you've got a secondary game or even a friend who has a game, maybe see if you can move them off in that direction. Remember, when we're talking about problematic players, we're not necessarily talking about bad players.
No,
we're talking about it's more of a lot. It's 9 times out of 10, it's personalities.
Yeah,
and that's where you have to find that nice little, even flow ground. I know that there's been people I've sat at the table with that I've annoyed the hell out of, and I go pat on the back. Yes, I have annoyed the hell out of them, and it just is what it is. But yeah, that typically I try to look more at what the interactions are to try to get to what's really causing it, so we can get to a good place of being able to have everyone enjoy the table time.
okay. That sounds pretty amenable. Generally, it says, hit him with a clue by 4. Deej is like, you won't like my answer. I have one semi-problematic player who talks too much, so I just slap him upside the head and tell him stop. Got him.
I have I got 2 ways of looking at this. As a paid DM, I have always had the opportunity just to object the player from my game. I can say, hey, I appreciate you wanting to be here. I am sorry, but this might not be the table for you. Please, if you follow me up front, I'll make sure you'll get your money back. I am so sorry. Please come back. Maybe you're just having a bad day. It does happen. Maybe this is not the story for you. But, but someone not holding his hand, but not being an asshole at the same time. Unless it goes that way. Then if it goes that way, then it's partly my fault that it went that way. Sometimes.
That
And the
happens.
other aspect of it, I'm thinking it's like over at Jade's house or Baron's house, if I ever can make that work, or I make it down to Texas and Bruce's or somebody else's table that I don't know. I have certain quirks about me that most people might find annoying, and I'm sorry. I fidget a lot. I have an ADD thing, so I'm always picking up the phone and playing with something. And it's not that I'm not paying attention. What's going on is just if I don't keep my hand hand busy doing something, I will become more problematic than I already am. And I'm not meaning to be. I just have to keep myself in check. It's not that I'm not invested in the story. I just fidget. So, with that being said, if I get somebody like that at my table, I got to say, okay, he's on his phone. I'm going to ask him a question. And if he answers it correctly and he always responds to his turn, hey, it's your turn. You don't have to ask him twice, or he responds even before it's his turn. Like Sally's turn just ended. You see him pick up his paper, pick up his dice. I'm going to do this. Then I know that he's somewhat like me, where he's just keeping himself out of trouble and he truly wants to be there. Now, on the other hand, when you have a player that is like, hey, did you hear about Becky? Becky's ass is so big, or whatever. Yeah,
Put it on Discord. Playing the game now.
yeah. I'm like, no one needs to hear that. I don't care that you got a brand new car. Cool, whatever. We're about ready to take a 15-minute break. Talk about all that stuff here in about 15 minutes. We'll take a quick bathroom break, and if he doesn't, then I'm going to say, hey, sort of like everybody else has already said, you either need to somewhat find a reason to be here or not be here. And I won't go the same way that Baron will be to try to be annoying back. Well, I have been. There's a video of it out there that we don't really need to talk about. Making rid of 300 pounds of dead fucking weight, but that's besides the point. But if you're having a problem with the player, always be respectful, as long as being respectful is what's necessary. Be cool until being cool is no longer the right play, is kind of my thought process.
I knew he was going to tie Patrick Swayze's Roadhouse into this. I knew it.
It's a great line. Tell me it's not a great line.
Roadhouse.
After Chile, it becomes the Brown House.
All right, Shadow.
You have some games that are out of the 6 of us that are typically here. Like, I run a game for about 2 years. Garrett will run a game until it disintegrates. Jade tries to run a game for about 3 to 5 years. Connell runs games for a little bit less than what my campaigns last. You've ran a game for how many years? Your second ed game.
About 30.
Okay.
It's about 30. About 30 years. Yeah, from the time they made the first level characters to now, it's about 30 years.
I kept you last in this rotation for the explicit reason that I wanted to have the wit and wisdom from somebody that's ran a game for 3 decades be able to comment on things, because you've got more going on than I'd say most people in the hobby. So
I've seen it all. I literally have seen it all. You name it, the romances, the breakups, the backstabbing, the one-upsmanship, the glory hogs. You name it, the edgelords. Well, wait a minute, I'm the edgelord. I've seen it all. I literally have, and I've had literally thousands of players come and go from my tables, various locations over the years, from starting out as a 14-year-old paid DM, having 20 people at my table on a good Saturday afternoon of all ages. I've gamed for people 3 times my age, literally, to younger than me, and you really have to be able to not just read the table, but read everybody at the table. And if there's ever someone who's becoming a problematic player, my simplest solution is to call them out right then and there. Are you not enjoying the game? Do you not really want to be here? If that's the case, we'll take a break and we'll come back and you just won't be here. We'll just schedule a game for you not to be in the game, because if you're not having fun, you're going to suck the air out of the room for everybody else, and nobody wants that. Now, if you do want to be at the table and there is something that's bugging you, let's air it out now, get it over with, no hard feelings. What's the problem? And let's move on. If you're not enjoying the combat or the role-playing aspect or just the story. I had one player who was having a great time, but just couldn't get involved in the actual story. He just wanted to go in and fight and kill and get some treasure, maybe level up. Didn't care about the story, the politics, any of it. He was a great player, but just couldn't invest himself into the everybody get ready to drink story that was going on. And mind you, it was one of my favorite games that I've ever run. I talked about it before when I talked about how undead was like just a myth and a legend. The priests of the entire world had literally forgotten how to turn undead because there hadn't been any undead in thousands of years. And then when they finally realized that they could turn undead, it was absolutely epic. The battle, the tide of the battle was turned by a few holy symbols in the right location. Faith just pushing them back and watching them just disintegrate. Thousands of undead across the battlefield, just disintegrating. Before the eyes of the higher level undead, just absolutely stunned into disbelief that their minions could just be so easily wiped out, and that eventually turned the tide for that battle. But then the undead came up with some new tactics, blah blah blah. But just don't wait until the end of the game. Don't wait, until the break. Just handle it right then and there. All problems in life, in my opinion, are best dealt with immediately. Every time you push something back, you let it grow a little bit more and a little bit more. If you can just stop the game and go, is there a problem? You're not enjoying the game. Is there something, you need to use the restroom? You need a smoke break? You had a bad day at work. You want to, just talk about that for a bit. We can come back to the game. Is there, something, work bugging you, or is one of the other players bugging you? Just air it out, get it over with. Let everybody know that you're still all friends. You're here to have a good time and enjoy each other's company. And if that's not possible, then let's find a way to fix it. And if we can't fix it other than ejecting your ass, rest assured your character will die before the night is over.
That's a little heavy-handed, but I would rather have the heavy hands and have a resolution than suck up my pride, or I'll just acquiesce and let you have this win. And from that moment on in the campaign,
No, you're the DM. You're the boss. You are, for lack of a better word, you are the god of the table, and everything you say is going to go the way you say it. Now, people can, beseech you for a token favor, or a give me this time, or a give me that time, or something like that. But you've got to maintain that iron grip in the, or people will walk all over you and pull things like Connell is famous for. And you've got to maintain that control. If you don't, you're letting someone else.
You know what you did.
Dust of dryness on the tip of an arrow would never ever happen in my game. Never in a million years. Beads of force, same thing. Never gonna happen. Just not gonna happen. Now, if you want to make a specific arrow that does all of that, yeah, but taking a magic item and slapping it together with another magic item that was not meant to do what your magic item's trying to make it do.
No, hold on. Before you jump my ass too far down this line, please understand the idea of my madness. The idea was, here's a formula. You take a blunt tip arrow. You use the D&D's version of super glue. You take a bead of force. You super glue bead of force to blunt arrow tip. you shoot it. Rules say, as rules are written, it says the bead will take effect as the bead is broken. So the moment it leaves your bow and it makes contact with something, it activates a spell. It's only a one magic item component with everything else that's mundane. It's not shoving two magical items together and hoping to get, Doctor Who. It's
the super glue.
Super glue. There's nothing magical about super glue.
There's no such thing as super glue.
Yes, there is. It's called pine tar.
Ah, okay.
Universal.
I thought you were talking about another. Yeah. There is a magical glue, and I was under the impression that there was a magical word or activation required somewhere in there.
The moment it breaks or makes contact to break, it activates. That's it. Then it does its own thing.
Yeah. Okay.
Now everybody knows
I
my formula to fuck over D, and thank you, Shadow.
We also in a campaign came up with the legit, weapon of mass destruction. You take a glass tube, roll a portable hole in it, attach it to an arrow with a bag of holding tied to the front of the arrow. You shoot it. The glass is going to break.
Old.
But still, it's a WMD. That's two magical items. It's the same type of thing you're talking about. Yet it's been used.
If the dungeon master is literally allowing you to purchase or make items that easily, there's kind of a problem. That's just those magic items are meant to be
Dust and dryness
elsewhere.
Dust and dryness
and it just seems a little free flowing with the magic. If you can obtain a bag of holding and a portable hole, those are
level, yeah.
Part of that
it doesn't matter what level the characters are. I mean, unless they're making them from scratch. Really, if they're making them from scratch, sure. Right. That's why I don't use anything.
It's actually the rule set. Right. So in 3.5, it assumes 3.5 assumes that it is a high magic and high magic item setting. That's just how 3.5 is kind of set up. Is it's expected that you should be giving out magic items at so many encounters or levels, and 4.0 makes it worse by going, you just start with X number of magic items. I don't know what 5e does. I'm going to leave that one alone.
No, 5e does not go that way.
So again, I don't know 5e. I've never played it. Haven't really even cracked the spine of a book. But just so 3.5 edition, or actually 3.0, it started in 3.0, basically made it so that magic items were more prevalent. They wanted a higher fantasy, more emphasis on the fantasy elements than previous editions.
And don't get me wrong, the game Bruce was talking about is probably higher magic than most of you could even imagine. I still wouldn't recommend pulling things off like that, because I'm more likely to kill you with the same weapon of mass destruction. Oh, you thought the radius was this? Guess what? You were wrong. The radius is 10 times what you thought.
I've had my own arrows come back at me.
Would be like, the gods themselves would be like looking at you going, oh, really? Problem solved.
No, Shadow. What you miss is sometimes what's good for the goose is good for the gander. For example, we're fighting something in one of Jade's campaigns. I'm sorry, Bruce. I'll be quiet here in a second.
You're good. I want this type of discussion.
Yeah.
I'm not saying I'm not saying what I shot these arrows with force speed on, which are expensive arrows. You don't like have a fucking arsenal of them. They're fucking expensive to make. You shoot one, and the creature had the ability of fucking throwing it back at you, and now I am
return to sender.
Right.
Yeah, trust me, you guys don't want to be facing off with opponents using disintegration arrows.
No, that was part 2 of the problem.
Return to Sender didn't
about my
care if
favorite-
it was physical or magical.
What about my favorite spell at 9th level, Disintegration Fireball? It
You
gets
can
rid of
do
the
that?
acid after it's done.
You can
You
do
can do
that?
that. You can do that.
Now, that's a good question. That right there is a damn good question.
That's our question, too, and I'm so happy that Chimerian's in chat. He's reading through the notes. Haha, Chimerian, I see you. I see you behind the curtain. Look, Chimerian's in his preferred position, manipulating the talk while being silent.
Boomerang arrows. What, do I look like the green arrow to you? Don't shut up.
What qualifies as a problem player for you, Jay? You've already said you've already ranked your players. You've got them ranked within the first or 1 or 2 sessions, and so you already have your problematic ones kind of. You already got them kind of segregated from your regular game casuals, and casuals you're not really too fond of unless you're like contributing to the game. Hey, he brought me Whataburger. Hey, he brought me Arby's roast beef. Awesome. Hey, this guy brought me kale sandwich with vegan pizza. Fuck this guy.
He can get the fuck out.
But you've already given them like a ranking. They're already in that spot for you, and all they do is like either they are with a shovel and they unbury themselves, or they just dig harder, right?
I mean, yeah, and I'll hand them the shovel to either fill in the hole that they've dug themselves into, and then, this is after like 10 sessions of playing with them. I'll know what kind of player they are, So after that point, I'll hand them a shovel to help them fill the hole back in. But if they decide to keep digging deeper, that's when I start looking for the end point of that group, and start collecting and pushing and basically making like a Ferris wheel of players to put my A-listers, A and S listers in that Ferris wheel to call upon later.
Fair enough. At this question, for you, Garrett, what identifies what qualities for you make somebody a problem player?
Well, it like I said, it is typically I can pretty much DM for anybody. It's the dynamic at the table, so it's the way of making sure to stop the wind shear of the personality clashes is more so on my end is what I look at. It's not necessarily one type. Some people just have those type of personalities just rub on other people, like Connell, and it is kind of one of those things.
Apparently, it's Connell's day in the barrel. Get used to it, man.
Yeah, we're gonna push you off Niagara after this. But no, seriously though,
Not the kind of barrel.
it does depend on. Like I said, more personality based than it is actually a stereotypical of they're a goofball, they're not now if they're not paying attention, I'll get their attention with a pack of Trasks.
With a pack of Trasks.
All of a sudden heads perk up and be like, what?
So you were over at Biggest Geekus.
Oh no. I've used pack. I was in there for a little bit, but I will say that I even made the comment. My favorite thing to use is a pack of Trasks. And yeah, it's just. But you know what? Just those words alone, all of a sudden, get everyone's attention at the table.
See, I really like.
I can do one better than that.
I really like the description that I would use if you're going into the city of Salt and Wounds for the first time, and you're part of this caravan. You've got like 30 donkeys hauling various wagons, and you and your friends are guarding these people they're barely qualified as intelligent people, but they empathize and work with the donkeys really well. So the past 3 weeks you've been dealing with these guys, and they drool a little bit when they eat, or they might not talk and enunciate their words properly. But when it comes to caring for the animals and making sure we're steered in the right direction. These donkey handlers are great. And you look up from the trail and you see the mountains are parting their ways a little bit, as you can see something on the rocky ridge above the hillside and the knobby top. And as you get closer, you realize that standing tall above the 30-foot black gates of Salt and Wounds, it looks like there's a vicious, huge Tarrasque pinned to the side of the mountain behind the city walls. And about once every 45 minutes, you can hear it rumbling bellow as it vibrates the ground you trod upon. And just let that just resonate with the players and let them get close in towards the city. And look at this, the donkeys are getting skittish. And there's a campsite up ahead where it looks like they have like a burrow or a burg before the town walls. And that's your destination. You're going to unload your goods there. Your donkeys can't proceed within the walls of the city. They'll become unruly. Just let that resonate with players and let that get their attention. So we got some new people in the chat. Ironcaster and the Multi Gunman. Hey guys, how you doing tonight? John Lee is talking about rare and Swedish rats. Looks like everybody's doing pretty good. Cigar DM's fighting off a head cold. Head cold. Head cold. Have you had your pure honey shot there, Connell? Sorry. Okay. So, Connell, problematic players for you. What is the identifying factor of this?
It's a little bit of everything. I don't like gaming. I don't like DMing for rule lawyers because it's my campaign. If I'm running it out of a module, if I'm running it out of a homebrew, at the end of the day, it's my campaign. If I say that Fireball does 1d6 extra or less, that's my prerogative, or whatever. I'm not changing the spell. I'm just tweaking it as whatever the case may be for the scenario. That's probably a bad example, but it's my rules. I'm God. It's my game. I will stay with rules as written for 99% of the game. But there will always be that 1% that I might want to change. And that's my prerogative. Now, what was the other parts of that? Hold on.
The other parts of that question?
Yeah, I'm scrolling up. Because a goofball is at a serious table. Yeah. If I'm running as you've said, a beer and pretzel campaign that is just something to do on a Saturday afternoon, yeah, I don't care. But if it's going to be a serious campaign, hey guys, I'm asking for 2 years of your life to game every Tuesday or whatever day I decide to game on, then it's going to be a serious game. If it's like, hey, what you guys doing this weekend? Nothing. Let's throw some dice, and it's completely different. Each setting has its own attitude it should come with. If it's a serious game, treat it fucking seriously. If it's not, then fuck, just then have fun. And yeah. And if it is a super serious player at a fun table, dude, go have a beer, go have 2 beers, come back after you smoke a cigarette, fucking relax. Is normally my response. So it's a little bit of all of those I've ran into.
All right. So, Chimerian had that question. Shadow, when you got a problematic guy or girl at your table, and there's only 2 genders, I have to ask, what would you do as a DM to discuss with them to have a more enjoyable game? We all have to be together for this time. I would prefer us be together than us kick you out. How do you approach that with a player?
Right. Well, to be honest, it's been a good long time since I've asked anybody to not play. Now, I don't mind goofballs. I honestly, I honestly reward good jokes. If you come up with a good joke, you're going to get the points for it. If you can come up with a valid and reasonable argument for why you want to do something that maybe would normally be out of the realms of possibilities, I'll give you a minute, to make your case. If you try, rules lawyering, I will just flip to the back of the DMG and explain that I don't care what it says. I'm doing this. And everybody who's played with me knows that that's my number one rule. It's about the setting and or the story. Sorry, guys. That's more important than the actual letter of the rules of any book. And I use a lot of books. I'll use my Traveler books in a D&D game. I'll use my Heroes Unlimited in a Traveler game. I run a game that has literally evolved from AD&D through Traveler and Palladium into something almost completely unique. But I'll have all the books ready for all kinds of different situations. For me, problem players are players that are the type of player that doesn't let anybody else talk. The players that demand to be the center of attention. I'm the leader, and that's the way it is. I'm declaring myself the leader of the group type of players. Maybe you have the qualifications, but by saying it, you've just disqualified yourself. Nobody wants to be under the thumb of a petty dictator because they want to be the petty dictator. I can't stand players like that. It's pretty rare. I play with, for the most part, a group of old friends, like most of you guys have been friends for a very long time, and we know how each other is or are. We know our flaws and our good points and our strong points, and we're not likely to kick somebody out ever because we're still going to be friends afterwards for things more than just a game. We've been friends through all kinds of good times and bad times for decades. We might as well be family. So you can't really just disown your friends like that. Maybe you guys can. Maybe you can say, hey, this isn't the game for you. But then, there were times where it was not my place. I was living with one of my friends, but I was the DM, but it was his house. And, I can't really, say, hey, so-and-so can't come over. Well, it's not my place, I'm renting a room, so, it really depends. But I've always had, you brought up the Taras, as a sort of attention getter, or a form of punishment. I prefer a much smaller monster. That's the Varguli. If you guys are familiar with that, it's basically a head of some sort of ugly tentacle-mouthed creature with wings sprouting out of it like ears, and they come in groups of 20s, and when they bite you, they do a D4 damage that's permanent. No wishes will bring those hit points back. You will lose 1 to 4 hit points per bite, and you're never getting them back. I don't care if Jesus Christ comes down and says, no, it didn't work. You just lost 4 hit points permanently. You want to keep it up? Okay, well, there's 19 more in the swarm, and they're attacking you all. So there's 5 of you. You each get hit 4 times, maybe. They're not very big hit die monsters, therefore they don't hit, guaranteed type of thing. But trust me, if you lose 10 hit points permanently in a battle, you're not going to forget that because there's nothing you can do to get them back. Sure, you can go up a level and get more hit points, but you'll always be missing those 10 hit points. No healing, no wish, nothing. You're not getting them back. That's a warning shot.
Isn't that the creature that also?
And when you've got player characters that, well, Connell.
Isn't that the creature that has a con save attached to it? If you fail a con, eventually your head will remove itself from your body and become one of those creatures. Or I think it's something else.
No, I think that's something similar. I think it's something similar, and I know what you're talking about. I think it's even in the same book. and it starts with a P, I think, a PH, something. And it's the picture that I'm thinking of. It's a woman's head.
Yeah.
I'm only going by old book. Where if it bites you 1 to 4, suck it up. That will teach them a very valuable lesson.
Isn't that what they do
Was that
with hit points?
fair?
Isn't that what they do with hit points? Suck it up.
I mean,
It's actually described that their teeth are so sharp and vicious that it's just permanent. And I've really only had to pull those guys out about 4 times in 40 years, and it sends the message across quite distinctly. They're, especially if you're like a magic user or something like that in the old days, where you'd be lucky to have 40 hit points by the time you stop getting hit dice. You lose 5 or 6 hit points. Yeah, you're the rest of your gaming career is going to be decidedly marked from that encounter. Like I said, it's a rare occurrence that I have to pull that out, but it's usually for the players that are literally being dicks. I don't mind if people want to joke around and have a good time. There are often adult beverages and what have you involved, expecting absolute perfect serious in the moment, every second of the game, perfect role players. I've had players that just don't want to do the role playing thing, but they're still great players. They're great friends. I'm going to take the good with the bad, but it's when they really start being a dick, or if they're trying to pick each other's pockets or steal from the treasure, things like that, or oh well, I'm going off to the left. Well, you guys, no, you're not. You're sticking with the party. I'm not running 2 separate parties at the same time. We've got a limited amount of time, and one guy is going to go off and take up all of my DM time while the other 4 players just sit there and twiddle their thumbs. No, I don't think so. There are times for that, and I will give you your moment in the sun if you're a thief and you need to go sneak off and do something cool. But in the middle of, a situation where they are probably going to need you, yeah, you're not going left when everybody else is going right.
Are there mushrooms? That's a bad joke.
Now, see, with me, what I'll do too is that there is a kind of obscure, but really good Pathfinder, kind of like one-shot module that is called the Carnival of Tears, I think is what it is.
Carnival Tears by Nicholas Logue.
Yes. And there is this beautiful thing. The players can have all the fun they want, and they win these little Cupid dolls. The issue is those Cupid dolls have all kinds of things attached to them that are curses. In order to get them removed, it takes a remove curse per Cupid doll. So if you have, someone that's going out that's got 10, 15, 20 of them, I mean, that is one thing that I like to use too. That's not as evasive, but it kind of goes with Shadow. It's going to cost them a chunk of money. They can get rid of it, but it's going to cost them a chunk of money to get those remove curses removed.
I actually kind of stole one from Jade more or less DM. This is called DM Smite. I mean, if it has any other title, it would be DM Smite. I kind of stole one from Jade. I was at a local game shop when I was living down in Nashville, and they had a Pathfinder figure of basically the Headless Horseman. It has its own name. It's like it's the dual. I can't pronounce it. It's in Gaelic. And anyways, and if I get a bunch of unruly players, I have the miniature. And I don't know where it's at right now, but I have the miniature. Anyways, and I'm like, and they just keep talking and talking. Hey, guys, kind of want to get game going. Yeah, just one more minute. Keep going and going. And it's like, I need everybody to make perception checks. They're like, why? I just do it, let's get this game going. Roll me a perception checks. They're like, okay. You hear a horse trotting down. You start to hear what sounds like a horse trot. And then I just, bring in the Headless Horseman. which is like a CR 15, 16, somewhere around there. And depends on what level they are at the party. It is a very much doable encounter for them, or they're going to be running. Either way, their mind is back to the game. And it's kind of a, well, if you guys were just paying attention and going along with this, we would be already in the next town, and you could tell me how you're flirting with the waitresses or whatever. But you want to dig around in the middle of the road at nighttime, bad shit does happen at night, and that's normally how I do my DM Smite. I find it to be a little bit more fun. I don't know. Plus, like, how often do you get to use a Headless Horseman figure in the campaign?
I don't mind the idea of DM Smite. I don't mind those ideas at all. I like the idea of the ghoulies. While I was having a siren run past the house, because apparently we've been had a bunch of EMS calls here lately. Don't know why. I just know I live in not downtown San Antonio, but it's EMS Central. So we just saw Crafty's thing about the Red Wizard of Thay. 12 dice 6 necrotic damage. Yeah. Awesome. Okay.
Yes.
When you have a player at the table that's making the game not kind of go as smoothly as you want, there's a few ways you can get inspiration from this. One way is that despite the heartache he's causing you, if he's making the other players enjoy themselves but not at the game's expense, they can make fun of you. They can't. Don't take yourself so fucking seriously. Is my best advice. I mean, we're in 10 years you got to laugh about this shit. You really have to. So you don't want to take the game so damn seriously that you're like stressing about it and you're acting like a corporate middle management. You better get yourself in line because we've got deadlines. Can't be doing that. We're not Dinner Mifflin. But if the problem player is offering you a way to use him as a crowbar, and sometimes there's tells, there's ways where people will speak or ways that people will go on and attack, per se. You want to pull the player in private and say, I know this probably isn't your standard type of game you play in. Do you mind if I took it this direction? And that way you're not really going against him, but you're kind of asking him to aid and abet your efforts to develop your table further. And I think that was something that I failed to do numerous times. I could use that own advice whenever I have it in my face saying practice with this instead of me taking offense on it some ways. But I'm not saying any of your guys' responses are bad. In fact, I really like the Ghoulies one because there's nothing there are worse things than Ghoulies, mind you, but the fact that Nicholas Logue was able to resurrect the Brady Bunch trip to Hawaii, and Greg Brady had that totem doll in his pocket, and he went surfing and he wiped out to be continued. And then Nick Logue made a Cupid dolls that everybody could win at the Carnival of Tears. That was good stuff, and it was pretty interesting if you read that module, if you run that module, and then you watch Brady Bunch right afterwards. You're like, I've had this happen. I've played that with my players before. But I think for myself, like I need to use those problem players as tools, because in the worst case, anybody could be used as a pry bar or as a way for you to dynamite a log jam in your campaign. And if you understand the phrase dynamiting the log jam, I think you understand where I want to go with this. You want to not get stuck. You want to have your campaign keep going, keep flowing down the way that you as a GM, DM, storyteller, whatever, you see it going. And none of your guys' responses are wrong, because if
if your practices were wrong, then you would have probably lost some players from that, and it might have been something that affected you on 3 months or 6 months, and then you learn from it. And you're like, oh, hold on, let me tell you the story here. But your guys' experiences really are good. Now, if a problematic player happens and they leave, say they vacate. Sometimes there are people like do what Kai says, and they just make themselves not there anymore, and they will just interact occasionally from behind the scenes. You have an empty vacancy at your table. You have a spot for somebody else to join. Where do you guys go, or what do you do to fill that spot? Or do you fill that spot? Do you just give another player an extra character sheet and say, run Timmy the Wizard for me? Do you guys do that? Jade, I started with you the last few times. I'm going to skip you for right now. We go to Baron G-Rock.
It all depends. Sometimes I'll leave the spot empty. Sometimes we'll bring someone else in. It just all depends on what the feeling of the party is. I typically, when I run, I ask them. I said, "Well, do you want to bring another player in, or do you guys think you can handle this? Down one." And and then I'll ask them. I said, "Okay, is there anyone that?" And I'll even take ask them to say, all right, well, do you guys know anybody who would like to play? Because they're the ones playing in the game. It's mostly their dynamic is what I'm looking at. So, yeah. So it's one of those things where I do rely more on my players for empty spot fills than I do myself actually going in and getting other people to join in. So I mean that's how I typically handle that. I typically try to shy away from giving them multiple PCs, just for the reason of, because I've done it to where I've run two PCs before as a player, and then I start looking at one and I start getting things confused on the character sheets. It's easier to keep everything, for those players to keep that one character in mind and go with that. So that's typically how I take care of it.
Fair enough. And a lot of DMs don't like having people play more than one hero at a time. Only whenever you have 3 people or less does that become something where you might do a multiple hero per player situation, or if you have the balls for it, go with troop play, where one or more heroes is played by that same player, but you'll never have them in the same location. There'll be different aspects, different parts. Like, I want to say you're running in Greyhawk, but right now you're in the ruins of Ayu's blah, blah, blah. And so you're playing this wizard over here. But then we have to have you hit a break point, and we have to take the character's view from here. And now we're in the city of Grand Tubal and at the council meeting. So all the players attending each get a note card with the character they're playing right now. They really don't have stats. They have things like Studious is an aristocrat, and this is the situation at the council meeting. The DM introduces it, gives 2 paragraphs of read aloud text, and puts a NPC in play to force that situation on the players who are now playing the council members, things like that. And you could do things like that, but I don't see a lot of DMs doing that still. That was kind of big in the 90s. And you would have cutaway versions where the players get to a certain point in a dungeon or a certain point in their Star Wars campaign, and we push those characters aside, and now we do troop play where we have this other NPCs that you guys are going to play their characters, and you're going to help start writing that campaign from that perspective until we're finished with the scene and we go back. But not many people do that, Garrett, and I didn't mean to go on such a long tangent on that. Sorry. That's something that just hit me just now because I remember the Dark Strider campaign for Star Wars. A great box set. Okay. So, Carl, when you're looking to fill a vacancy, you've got a spot open, maybe somebody left or that somebody moved. What do you do? How do you approach that?
It comes down to two different scenarios for me. Once again, if it's the game shop, I just put normally a note with a wizard's face on it. Says, Uncle, what does it say? Uncle Fizzbang is looking for you, looking for adventure. The whole Uncle Sam thing, but just D&D it out, or fantasy it out, and I'll stick that on the board. And that's how for the paid gig, and for a personal one, there's enough people with the sport that me and Jade are both in, and the amount of people I know it's in those sports, especially with the internet being what it is, where you can do virtual tabletop gaming. I can always find somebody. Somebody's always looking for a game. And so it's not that hard. I will never ask my players if a person leaves the campaign and is like, I'm not coming back, or we asked him to we basically asked to leave and never come back. I will give the option of, well, your player has two choices. Either you can die honorably or your character can wander off. You pick it. Because I will not have a player play a second character that A, the original player is not around, and B, he doesn't quite understand that character, because what personalities that we give to our character are unique to ourselves. I can't play a character that Baron makes that have 5 levels in it. I won't understand his quirks. In theory, it's a personality thing. I can understand how to run the character, but the quirks of the personality, that's an individual thing. And I know Jade's probably going to argue that point, but it's a personality thing. And I don't expect anybody to be able to pick up one of my characters and play them the way I play them, because they're not me. Mileage may difference. And that's normally how I handle it. I kind of want to answer. We can circle back to it, but Crafty put up a question for me. I can answer it now, or I can answer it later. It's up to you, Bruce.
I was going to let you answer that after Jade finished this round of questions.
Okay.
Just keep things going on this, because I usually don't run my own table for panels. I usually allow other people that have better organizational skills to do that. But I'm going to try this, and we'll get to that, Crafty, in just a second. Connell, do you have anything else to answer on the current question now?
No, I think I covered it.
Okay. Shadow, you had a problem player, or you had somebody at your table that wasn't really driving with your group too much. For me, it's always if they get along with the table, but they don't get along with me, I'll keep them. I'll keep them as long as I can. But the moment they start causing disharmony in my table, that's when I usually boot them. How do you approach that, or is that kind of close to where you're at?
Well, like I said, it rarely happens that if somebody leaves their spot, I kind of like to leave it empty, to let that sort of stand as a constant reminder. When Boromir died, they didn't go look for another Boromir. He left an empty spot in the group. Maybe he's not the best example, but having that empty seat at the table, is a good reminder of, what happens, not just in games, but in real life. People leave, for whatever reason. And if the players, can recruit somebody, a new player, cool. If not, then then you guys are the ones that will be the players from this point on. And it's kind of like hit points. Players can be like hit points. You ran out, you lost the player. Now you got to do everything without that individual. Now, I do normally insist in my groups that you play 2 characters, mostly because my players are very well experienced, and we don't always have like large groups. It's usually about 4 players. Sometimes it's only 3, in which case each player playing 2 characters, that makes 6. That's a bigger number. But the other reason is so that you always have a buddy. You're never alone, so to speak. You've got your built-in best friend or girlfriend, or however you want to look at it. And mind you, that's actually a pretty good idea. You know, I know a lot of people don't like guys playing female characters, but this way you have your own built-in love interest. You know, their husband and wife, their boyfriend and girlfriend. So I don't have to do any of that crap. You know, that's your girlfriend. Okay, cool. You know, maybe I'll kidnap her and the party has to go help you, you know, rescue her or that sort of thing. But it's built in so that you have, you know, either, you know, a love interest or a friend. And it also allows for more, like most people don't want to run the designated healer. But if you've got 2 characters, it's kind of a hint that one of them better be your designated healer for your group of 2 characters. You know, for example, Jade, you get 2 characters. You might want to make it so that they're a good team, okay? Because I'm not going to, you know, hand out healing devices and what have yous, you know, the way you would like. So if you can build it into your little dynamic duo there, you know, if one of them's got the healing covered, then you're good to go. Otherwise, you know, Connell over here, he may say, fuck it, I'm not making healers. And okay, well, there's 3 characters that aren't healers and don't expect to be finding potions of healing just, you know, laying around in dungeons. That's not going to happen that often. Okay? And buying them, maybe. But, you know, right off the bat at first level, you know, my feeling is always that there should be, you know, 1 healer per 3 characters. Some way of getting back your health, because it's not my responsibility to, you know, just drop healing potions like the Easter Bunny, you know, so that you guys don't die. If you don't take care of it, you're going to die. And if you don't take care of it and you have no way to heal, then every other combat you're going to be leaving the dungeon or going back to town so that you can rest up 1 hit point per day of full rest until you get your points back. So be warned, bring a backup, be healed, and if your players, you know, if you lose a player, you know, I usually leave it up to the rest of the group to recruit. Now, I'm going to be running some games online, and this is the perfect medium to find, you know, players to play online. I've already got a few people lined up who want to be in a couple of my games, and I can't think of a better way, you know, since they're not coming to my house because I live far away from just about everybody I know, and it's hotter than hell here. So, you know, go online, find people. If you're going to play in person, you know, maybe you can still meet people online to replace, you know, fallen comrades. Or if not, you know, put an ad in the paper or go to your local game shop saying, you know, where's your bulletin board? Can I, you know, recruit players for my house as opposed to playing in the game shop? Because, you know, my friends may want to have an adult beverage every now and then, and I'm pretty certain that's not okay here.
That'd be an awesome game shop if it was, though. Holy shit.
We had it in Corpus Christi for a while. We had a game store called the Gamer's Den. I did a few videos there on my YouTube channel. Big tall Robert the Bruce was the GM of that place, and he owned it. It was a really good store. But if you were a friend of the store, which meant you were on good terms with Robert, you bring him a bottle of whiskey once a month, and he'd let you drink whatever you want. And you could pretty much, like, there's kids playing Yu-Gi-Oh! Like 3 tables down from you. You're there drinking. And, like, they understood and you understood, and you're like, you're not getting my whiskey. And they're like, well, you're not playing my Yu-Gi-Oh! And that worked out pretty well because I never once ever saw any young kids there getting any sort of alcohol from us. There was a young lady that came in drunk one night, and we kicked her out. Like, nope, Cat, you got to go home and sober up before you play. But I finally am drunk to play with you all. Yeah, you're still 18. Get out. not gonna.
I am not catering around with that bullshit.
No, I didn't. We did not tolerate that shit. And Cat was like a cutie. If you see her on the video, like she's this little like waifish thing with the worst like bedroom hair you ever saw because her hair never styled right. Thick mane of hair just came out at all angles. She looked like a Jap anime girl. Anyway, that you're talking about having characters room for the night and having players. Well, when we go to camp, this is my miniature at the table. I take my 2 miniatures off, and this is my miniature. Nobody else is allowed in the tent. So
It's a nice tent.
it's a Mantic Games. Mantic Games did this, so I was pretty happy about that.
It's almost as nice as the ones I make.
Yeah. If I had the time, I'd craft my own stuff. I get it, and you do really good work. I really do like your stuff, man. By the way,
Thanks.
if you are a subscriber to Shadow and Son, I would like you guys to subscribe to Shadow and Son. Him and his son do amazing craft work, and they show you how to do it on the cheap. Not everybody's made of money. Not everybody's a multimillionaire gaming designer. Has a volcano lair. Most of us are pretty much running that minimum. 2/3 of America right now are living paycheck to paycheck right now, but they can show you how to make your own crafting for a table if that's the type of
And I can show you how to make a volcanic lair. We did that. We did make a volcano lair.
Awesome. Let me know. This is the
About 3 feet tall.
Let me know. These are from Campsite. This was a tent that was included in Campsite. I'm needing to find a campfire. I need a campfire for my game. Okay.
Whoa, Bruce, give me some time and I'll make you one.
Just show me how to do it, and I can do it. If you can do that.
Just get a tea light. Get a tea light. And start
Okay.
with it.
All right.
And it will light. It will light up and flicker, and you'll love it. Your players will love it, and you can't toast marshmallows on it, but it will look nice.
Oh, I've set fire to marshmallows in my apartment before. My bad. So, don't do that. Don't do that, kids. So, Jade, you're running a game. You have a player that's not really being too conducive. They leave.
Yeah.
At the point when they leave, how do you? What do you do? Do you fill that spot? Do you leave that spot empty? Kind of like we had a Boromir, but Boromir wanted to be greedy and just leave that empty, force the players to adventure with one less capable adventure, or do you go on a recruiting drive?
Yeah. So, kind of a two-parter here. So at first, yes, I will leave it empty for 1 or 2 sessions while I go get my Rolodex or my Ferris wheel, as some might call it. And what that is I have basically a set of call cards. Basically, like I've got player names and phone numbers written down. And I put them kind of into a Ferris wheel scenario where, the people at the bottom, getting onto the tram, going up the ride, they are the ones in the campaign. The next person in line that would get onto the Ferris wheel is the next person I call. And I've got 8 to 10 people I can call on to say, hey, running a game, are you available? In that kind of scenario. I've had, I think, a request this was back when I was living in St. Louis. I had a request from 16 different people to be in one of my games at any given time. And I had to kind of roll, just go through like, okay, is this person available on this day? If not, then I go to the next person in line. So I always kept a running list of people who wanted to game, wanted to be in my games, and to call on them if ever a opening came up, but it had to be on a day that everybody could agree to. Like in high school, it wasn't that hard. We nerds didn't do anything on Friday or Saturday nights. Not many of us had interests in significant others at that time. So I always had a rolling yes, you can, I was the classic nerd. I didn't have a girlfriend for a very long time.
I'm not saying a word.
Well, that's more because I didn't like people, especially not in the areas I've been in. I still don't like people, but that's an entirely different problem. No, so yeah, I always keep a list of players that might be available, and I'll give it a few sessions between to give them time to figure out their schedule to see if they are available. And then once they say yay or nay, if they say yay, I'll they'll join. I give them the heads up of what's going on, and I give them their intro. I run them through a scenario that says, okay, here's how you're entering the game. Here's everything you've done up to this point, and here's how you know the heroes. So I'll give them all the tools they need to succeed when they enter at the table. But beyond that, if no one is available, then I will leave the seat open longer. And if it becomes a problem, I might fill it with an NPC, like as some people call them, a DM PC, where you insert one of your own your character into the game, but they'll always fill a support role. They'll never fill the main hero role. And Bruce left us. Oh no. So yeah, I like I said, I keep a list of players. I still have probably about 8 to 10 people I could reach out to at a moment's notice and get a hold of.
Sorry about that.
No, you're fine.
I boomered.
Now, I would like to circle back to something Connell said. You said that playing another player's character, that you don't think it could be done.
I don't think. Well, okay, I'll let you go for it, and I'll have my retort.
Well, so I have successfully played another player's character and kept the same personality, all the same quirks, because I took meticulous notes on how that player played the character. Now, I don't think anyone can do it. You are right in that aspect. Not everyone can. But if you want someone to take on, that's a really cool character. I wish it could stay with the group. If a person is willing to take meticulous notes on how someone plays a character, they can fulfill that character again. They can step into those shoes. When I say I have lived 1,000 lives, it's because I've played so many characters. I can get into the headspace of the characters themselves and be able to run literally any character, any gender, any species, anything. But that's because I take.
Start singing Dream Theater. Go ahead.
No. No, when I say I've lived 1,000 lives, it's basically the hero of 1,000 faces. I can fill any role. I can fill any class, any gender, any species. Again, that's because I take meticulous notes and I do a lot of study.
Okay. Some of you guys have been around my table whenever I break into certain great and powerful Republican wall-wizard Bilius Maximus, which Bilius is now the player who originally had him has been gone for 24 years, and we've been bringing him back and honoring him in our games for as many years. Yeah, Crafty, I just made he said I thought he was going to do a pull me under lyric rinse, but he didn't. He pulled out. I like Dream Theater, so don't get too excited. I really like Dream Theater. They're better than Avantasia. Okay, so anyway, I really did understand that whenever you take meticulous notes on somebody, or if you live next door to someone and you spend 3 hours a week hanging out with them, hanging out with their friends, and exchanging jokes and drinking beer, sharing beers with them, drinking their beer. You do that for a couple years, and then you can take on their mannerisms a little bit. You can do a good impression, and it doesn't take a whole lot of voice modulation for a person to really develop mimicry. It takes you about 6 months before you really start getting some of the finer points of someone's voice down pat. But about 6 months of training that you have to do. And I'd say when you start doing that, probably between 30 minutes to 45 minutes a day, where you're just doing that. And I would usually start making noises like somebody else in the vehicle that I was driving, because nobody's riding with me typically. I'm usually driving alone. So I would start doing that, and that's usually one of the things I do. Chimerian, he talks about finer gaming points. He talks about like things you could do to have a good like 40-minute rant on. Not Bruce. Bruce is trying to perfect his Bugs Bunny or Necro or Skeletor. You know. Now we're gonna circle back. Connell, are you there? Connell's in the middle of a drink. Okay. And
I'm here.
I have my mirror and my magnifying glass right in front of me, so I sometimes don't see the screen. I can see the chat off to the side, but the main viewing of is blocked, so I apologize. I want to discuss with you, Kai had brought up a question about how do you handle a problematic player when they forked over money to be at this table?
Oh, that was Crafty who asked.
That was Crafty.
That was Crafty. Most of
You have to find your answer.
well, there's only been a few times where I've had that, and let's start with Missouri is not Illinois.
Okay.
Illinois has a wonderful law saying I can't touch you. You could be a complete or douchebag, but I can't touch you. It's a touch-free state, especially if you're a bouncer, and it sucks. Missouri doesn't have that law per se.
What are
Well-
you referring to? I mean, when you say this, you're talking about somebody that's at your table, and you're talking about like squaring up next to them. Am I
Well,
right?
let me explain the story. And I just wanted to use this as a pretense. Now, problem players at my game, if it falls underneath one of two scenarios. One, hey guy, you're just not making it work. You're just not working it. Not working. You're not. If things are just not working for you, you're having a bad night, bad roll of dice. You're just not having fun, and I'm really, really sorry about that. Let me walk you up front. I'll make sure you get your $5 back, and you're more than welcome to come back anytime. Just keep in mind everybody has a bad day. That is the best case scenario. The worst case scenario is when I have, for example, I was running a campaign. At my table, I have a little bit of this and a little bit of that when it comes to players, because all are welcome. One of my players, it was Aspergian, very sensitive Aspergian. So I always kept in mind how things, who was sitting next to him, how things were said, how I talked to him. Because you know what? He is a really cool kid, and he deserves to be there at the table like everybody else, right?
Disagree, but we'll talk about that later. Go ahead with you say everybody deserves a spot at the table. We'll go with that.
All right. The guy comes in, unknown guy. No one knows him at the game shop, and sits next to Julian. And Julian is, he's got most of his little fidgets controlled. He picks up a soda once, takes a drink, he sets down and picks it up, rotation. He does the whole OCD clicking things every so often. Nothing really bad, nothing really horrible, just, a few little smart quirks. Well, the guy was rolling bad. He was just having a bad night of rolling. I mean, just a really bad night. And he says, I can't concentrate when I have this retard next to me. And I'm like, what? He's like, you heard me. I'm like, listen, we don't use language like that here. This is a family shop. I do have kids in here every so often. Please refrain from using language like that. Then he looks at me. He's like, you know what? You can go fuck yourself. I'm like, well, I'm like, okay, that's fair. But now I'm going to have to ask you to leave because I'll make sure, I'll walk you up front, make sure you get your money. And, I'm sorry, but, we don't need that language nor that attitude at this table. And then he swings at me. I move. I accidentally reacted. He fell over. I picked him up by his belt, dragged him outside the store, called the cops, explained to the cops what happened. Cops went and talked to my boss, asked the people at the table what happened. It all went down the way I said it did. The guy was arrested. Now, I prefer not to have that happen, but, I prefer you just go get your money back and leave. But I'm not going to kneel down to anybody when it comes to gaming. Everybody has their rules for their table. And as long as that might be worth it. As long as, the shop's rules and your rules coincide, then there's no argument. It is what it is. These are the rules. If you don't like it, I will give you back your money. You go have a nice day. Does that answer your question?
And there was an interesting side note attached onto that from Mark. And Mark had asked, do you worry about shooing away a potential customer for the store when you have a situation like this?
Like the one who's
like the guy in the store setting, he's calling one of the players at the table a retard.
Right.
And then he gets confrontational. He continues being confrontational with you. Are you worried about costing the store money?
No, because I covered my ass. First rule of all things in life: make sure you cover thy ass, and I covered thy ass.
How do you cover the ass?
Because I said I'm sorry, but I covered my ass by wordage. We did not use language like this because we have kids back here. We can have kids back here. Would you, let me walk you up to the door, and things like that. I said everything I needed to say. And if he would have just went up, followed me up there, got his money back, then he could have came back. All is not forgot, but all is,
All is well. He can try again next time. Just
right.
Did.
But I don't know a store out there that if you swing at one of the employees, you're going to be able to come back.
Yeah, and a lot of employees just won't deal with said individual. They're, this guy assaulted me. I don't know if I want to take money from him because I don't want him to feel like he's getting rewarded. I would rather him go buy online.
Right. So go for it.
I'm just saying that whenever somebody takes physical action at a person at a store setting, which I've only seen a couple times where people have lost their cool and there's people watching, are you going to swing on them? And I'll even infer directly to the situation between you and Russ.
Yeah.
I was wondering if Russ was going to try to swing at you, instead he slapped the pillar. And things kind of got diffused there. Like, that was the peak. And then after that, we can't have the two of you at the same table. And then things resolved themselves anyway because I moved out of state. Kind of fixed that for a while. So I was just kind of wondering about that problematic situation. When you have a situation like that in the store, typically the store management gets involved. You have a confrontation between people. Guys, this is a store. We have families here. We have kids here. I'm going to need you to curb your language and curb your hostile actions and activities. Either you purchase the items which you're looking at now and leave, or you just leave and leave the items here. Thank you. And that would normally be most standard operating procedure for most stores. I wouldn't see John from the game room acting different. I wouldn't see Mike from Just for Fun acting different. I sure as hell wouldn't see Robert the Bruce acting different, even though we had alcohol, open containers of alcohol there, damn near every moment that store was open. God, I can't believe how much liver damage I did to myself there. But I will say that we had
a lot of times where we had open alcohol, but there was no fights. There was no problems. People just kind of recognize, like, oh, that person is kind of important here. Oh, that's Bruce. He runs Pathfinder for 10 people. He runs a 10-player game. Don't say go against him whatsoever. That's Jarcy. He runs the store keys. He's got the bank bag. We had like 12 people there. This is before they closed down in 2014 or 15, and they were just associated with, we're friends with the store. We drink with the owner, and that's kind of what it is. We're off work. We're here to hang out, play games, and do stuff. And that was 90% of the time I ever spent there. It was a wonderful store, I might add. Their new version with the new ownership, they're not going that route. But Sean Cherry brings something kind of funny here. You guys game with people who are way too high strung for the hobby. Shit, it's just freaking elf games. Up to a point, bud. Up to a point. Mark, we squared with a problem player in a store setting. We don't really worry about a whole lot. Typically, whenever you have a situation, you just take the offending individual and love them, buy what they need, and listen, we would appreciate if you leave. Thank you so much. And hopefully, if need be.
Well, you may lose one customer, but how many customers in that one?
One chase way. You have one bad customer come in, and he just sours it. Like if he comes in one night and he never comes in again, that's great. But if he becomes a repeat customer and brings his shining attitude, which irritates everybody else within the domain, how many people is he going to chase off? And I would think that most places won't tolerate that behavior. Crafty's like, come to the dealership sometime. Customers think they can swing at us, curse on us, throw things at us because we're salesmen, not human beings. I was a dealer for a short while in 2019. I wasn't exactly well thought of by the dealership I worked for because I didn't have the wardrobe they wanted me to have, but I was able to talk game pretty well, and I was able to make them money, although I was never credited with it. It was, oh, you're still in training. All right, I'm done. After 3 weeks, I'm out. See ya. But yeah, I saw the hostilities people have to car salesmen. It kind of breaks your heart. It's like, this guy's just trying to pay for his house. This guy's just trying to pay for a 1-bedroom apartment in Bellevue. I get it. And then Crafty says to Sean Cherry, these are people who are typically not gaming with us. They want to, and they may for a short time, but a bad apple's a bad apple. And they get broomed out fairly fast. You'll see that. You'll see maybe one player go around in different gaming groups within a domicile or domain area, and they just kind of upset everybody they touch tables with, and they get their, they get in there and they piss off GMs. They'll irritate a store manager. They'll irritate a store owner, and pretty soon they're not wanted. They're not wanted in the community, so they have to go buy things off Amazon. They have to go buy things, for cheaper, and they're like, oh, I'm winning. I don't have to pay the price off the shelf. Well, you're really not winning if you're not playing these games. If you're having to run online on Roll20 versus getting live people to play at your own home, I've considered the home games in person to be a higher tier of gaming than online. Online, I don't mind, but I would much rather have every one of my players come over. The fact that I live 1,000 miles out of the way for Shadow and Son, come bike over here, and then afterwards they can just bike on home. Somebody has a teleporter or a DeLorean with a Mr. Fusion device in the back. Let me know. I'd love to borrow it. But
we don't need roads.
Yeah, exactly. We got it fitted with a hovercraft and a repulsor lift drive. So the Crafty brings up my favorite movie, Zero Charisma. They will call individuals friends and people they know because they're running a game. All of a sudden, they just hear a dial tone. The guy was thoroughly unlikable. The fact he had 2 people in his game, he should be happy about. Now, the problem with that movie is that at the end of the movie, he doesn't learn anything, but he does have a hostage audience at the old folks' home running a D&D game for those about to die, which is kind of bittersweet, but it is what it is. Hey, Machini Draws, he hit 1K, and he's telling me I'm going to be hitting it in 1K here pretty soon. Any of my panel, we're in the 90-minute mark. I want to ask, do you guys have anything you want to add or any anecdotes about problematic players, I'm willing to mute myself so I don't speak up or laugh or chitter or whatever. I want you to hog the limelight for a while.
Well, there was a situation that we had where the DM in this game, this is one of the first games I played, the DM would actually take all the character sheets. And there was an issue with one of the players. She was there for dating purposes more off than actual gaming. So she was shown the door. Well, when the DM updated everybody's, we had just come out of a fight, that he had accidentally, not accidentally, but he had wound up killing off her half elf druid. And he took all the character sheets and everything else. No one leveled or anything. When we got him back the next week, of course, she wasn't there because she got showed the door. And all of a sudden, we were all at full health. And it was kind of funny just because the anecdote started of, well, just remember to pick up a 6-pack of half-elf druids and we'll pop their heads off because that's how her character died, by decapitation. And then we just get instantly healed. So it was like, oh yeah, you pop the head off, hey, healing for everybody, all right. So yeah, but I mean that's one of those things again where she was there for not the game, she was there for other reasons, and then she was shown the door. So I mean, if you're the biggest thing, guys and gals, is if you are going to go to a game, there's time afterwards where you all sit around and talk about the game or everything else. That's when you can start hitting on people or socializing that way. But during the game, no, don't do that.
Yeah. So problem players. I mean, you can correct a problem player. You can. It's going to take a bit of effort, but it starts with a conversation. I don't have a lot of players that leave my table. I don't typically kick people out. Now, again, I rate players, on my scale, and I'm the GM who admits it. We all think it. All game masters think, a certain rating scale or a certain classification of players. We all think that way. I'm just willing to admit it. But problem players, it starts with the conversation, hey, what's going on? I noticed, this behavior at the game, is there something you need to talk about? Is there something that's going on that, you need to go take care of? I'm not your therapist. I'm trying to be your friend. And if you have, deep-seated issues, you probably need to go see a professional. But, if it's not something like that, if it's not something that critical or serious, then, presumably these people are your friends. You can have conversations with them and be like, hey, what's going on? Why are you being a jackass? You can, if they are truly friends, you can do that. Now, for the whole paid game master thing, you handle that, the best way you can of, hey, this is a family store. These are the rules, and you set the rules out front. You don't, hide it behind anything. You say, here are the store rules. No foul language. Be respectful to other players. If they don't follow those rules, they're done. They're out, or they can change and come back the next day. But it always starts with a conversation. You have to open up the channels of dialogue with people, especially your friends. Presumably, if you have someone at your table, you don't just invite anyone to your house. People don't just invite literally anyone to their house. They vet the person first. Or at least they should consider vetting them. They might know the person. But if you're not willing to have a conversation with your problem players, you could also be part of the problem. I'm not saying you are, but you could be contributing to it. Just be there for your friends. And if it's nothing too major that they need to go see a therapist for, you can help them and get through whatever their problem is, so they can get back to playing the game. And back to being a good player again. Now there are some that, again, you can't do anything for, and they probably do need to go see a professional. And there's nothing wrong with going and seeing a professional. I know there's a huge stigma around it, but if you're having serious mental health issues, go see someone. It might, it's covered by a lot of insurance companies now. Go see someone. Go talk out your problems.
Crafty's got a question for you. Crafty's got a question for you there, Jade. That scale and rating used to be part of D&D First Edition. DMs would grade players, and that would, I guess it's not a question, that would translate to experience multipliers to the end of a session. Sorry, that's not a question. That's a statement. My bad. I saw your name attached.
Yeah.
So I brought up.
Okay. I played First Edition exactly one time in exactly one session. It did not take off, that long. And I had the books. I just didn't read through them carefully because I was young. I picked up the book and I'm like, yeah, I want a copy of this. I want this copy because I found it at a garage sale for like 50 cents. I know. Why? Like, why would that ever be at a garage sale for 50 cents? Person didn't know what they had. Unfortunately, that went up in smoke in my parents' attic when their house caught fire. It's unfortunate, but that's life. Things come and go. But at the same time, I don't remember ever seeing that scale. But this is the scale I've come up with, for my own purposes, because I do see the problem players. I do see them on occasion. Someone who wants to break their character mechanically speaking and always wants to be rolling double digits at first level. I'm sorry, my game table is probably not for you. I don't want to run that kind of game. I mean, if everyone at the table can do that, fine. I'm throwing triple the challenge rating at you than normal, but I'm still going to give you the standard XP for it. If you want to run to break games, I know 3.5 well enough. I can, or Pathfinder. I know it well enough. I can throw probably 50 points of damage at second level. I know how to do it. I'm not going to explain how to do it ever. So don't ask. But if that's the kind of game you want to run, we can do it. I just don't like to.
That doesn't sound like a lot of fun.
It's not. It's Rocket Tag, and I'm not a fan of Rocket Tag. Not anymore, anyway. I used to be a Rocket Tag player, and I hate myself for it to a certain extent. I used to be that kind of problem player. And Bruce, I apologize. I was that kind of player in your game, but that's the kind of game that the other players at the table gave me the impression that you were running. So
I try not to. I try not to. I actually am going for more, I guess, not slapstick, but like it's okay to miss your intended target. It's okay to fail a saving throw. We're going to live after this. We might have a TPK, but we're going to have something to laugh about later. But I really feel like as a GM, like I don't want to have a party of supers at my table, which Pathfinder kind of really ratcheted it up, and then 5th edition took it and said, hold my beer. And those two systems, 1st edition Pathfinder, 5th edition, or 3rd edition WotC, they really cranked it up. And I don't really appreciate that style of game for the most part when you take it, especially taking all the books and all the hardcovers they have officially. The Munchkinism, yeah, that tracking mat, that Rocket Tag, it's like, I can one-shot your boss level characters. I can one-shot the big dragon at the end of the campaign, and I'm only level 14. I don't give a shit. I'm trying to run a game where we're having fun, and part of the fun is occasionally failing or not exactly getting everything you want. You have to retreat. You have to go get resupplied. Yeah, and you have the original 3 and 3rd edit.
Yeah, this is my original 3 books bought pretty much the year they came out, and this was my first actual set of D&D books. This is 3.5. So I started with rocket tags, and that's all I knew for the longest time until I started experiencing other games like World of Darkness. So I mean, this really got me going in rocket tag.
I really like. I was blessed. I know some good guys that run World of Darkness. We're going to start wrapping this up here in about 20 minutes. If you guys want to stick around, my problematic player discussion. Unless my other panelists want to discuss that, do you guys have anything to add on this per se?
I kind of want to follow something you said.
Do it. You have the floor.
I like a campaign where at the end of the campaign that, my character is beaten up, he's like, fuck. Well, that was rough. For my archers, like, all right, how many more arrows do I have? How much longer can I do this? Because that's how I look at it. Because in real life, when I was boxing, even when I won, I wasn't happy with the match unless I was beaten halfway to hell. Because I knew it was a good match. I know that sounds weird, but I look at the same way in Pathfinder or D&D. I want my character to be if he gets tagged, that means the enemy is doing what it needs to be doing. And if it's a matter of bad rules, that's one thing. But if you get a DM who's afraid to upset his party, his players, and he keeps fudging the dice, that's no fun for the DM, and that's no fun for the fucking players.
They're actually drawing away value from the game because now it's made it to where the players have a beret, and everybody gets beret, everybody gets to win, everybody gets a trophy, and you turn it into a participation prize. Like, oh, that's great, you did 300 points of damage to that type 3 demon. That's so awesome. We all win. Instead of being honest with like, dude, you're scrappy little barbarian rolled a 4, and that makes a total of a armor class 5 at your level. You're not hitting anybody with that, Sally. And I appreciate your willingness to try, but that's really not what we want to do. We want to roll better. So
in your campaign, I've been swallowed by 2 fucking different creatures.
Yes. And I keep expecting my YouTube algorithm to show me that I'm getting huge in Japan, but no, only in Vietnam.
I mean, once was a fucking dinosaur who actually swallowed my ass. Then the trusty Clark Dwarf decided, I'm going to fall in down the gullet. I love you, Travis, but damn. Then last week, a red dragon had me in its maw and spit me out so it could breathe fire. And I still took damage, Can't do evasion check when you're flat on your ass.
The thing that, like, I haven't forced it, but there will be certain moments where I want to have a die roll that everybody can view as it happens. And I'm thinking about just like asking the player, like, if like there's a crucial moment where the DM or the NPC gets a spell off. Nobody hits him for enough damage, and he gets his spell ritual off. And you guys, okay, roll on the server for Discord, and that way we can all see what you roll.
Right. I've actually been thinking about that myself.
Because that die roller on Discord, the more I use it, the more average I'm seeing it throws that baseline out there. And I'm actually really happy with it. I just wish it wasn't so not integrated well with other things. Like I can't pull up a die roller window and have it be an active participation piece on the streams. Otherwise, I would.
Well, they gave Chris, our druid, fucking 3 nat 20s.
Yeah, dude, that's the only time in life he's ever had a shred of good luck, and he had all his good luck burn at once. And ever since then, if you haven't noticed, he has to get buffed before he gets in combat. I'm just wanting you to pay attention to that. There, Chris's die rolling ability is somewhere like having an enjoyable drive with a Yugo. Yeah, I know. Okay. By the way, Shauner's wanting us to steal some story ideas from Princess Mononoke for our D&D campaigns.
I first would have to watch it.
It's enjoyable. Actually, I'm going to recommend you watch that movie. Hell, I'll even review it with Janet one of these days because we're in the middle. We're starting off my 94 words of best year for movies, but I'm thinking that when we break from that, I'm going to throw Princess Mononoke out there as my first non-1994. Garrett, do you have anything you want to add as far as problematic players?
Nope, I think I beat that horse dead and threw him out of my game.
Okay. I really wish you throw that chick out of the game, man. I'm sorry, dude.
It wasn't me. It was somebody else.
Really?
Yep.
Okay. Well,
Okay.
for those of you who are, what do we want to talk about next week? Or do you guys want to discuss that in chat? Because we might be bereft of ideas at the moment. Not bereft of ideas, but inspiration.
I got nothing. We'll have to do that in chat. Sorry.
Other than talking about the one shots that we're going to be running, that's the only thing I've been focusing on because that actually sounds like a lot of content between making up, characters and then playing the game and moving on to the next GM's game. That's a lot of stuff to process between now and whenever, depending on who will be involved in that project.
Well, the thing is we definitely have to make sure that we get dates and times down so we can make sure that Kai is also involved with that.
Absolutely,
he's made the comment on here about being the perpetual GM, and God damn it, he deserves not to be the perpetual GM for at least five rounds of us doing this.
Yeah, there's 6 of us, involved. That's 6 different games, and 5 separate videos for each player making up their character, so that the audience can fall in love with or hate that particular character for the one shot. Kind of like get invested in the characters. Hopefully, it won't take a long time for each player DM combo to make that character, but hopefully we can make it enjoyable. Everybody's got something different to bring as their playing style. Let's face it, we'll each get 5 opportunities to be a player, so I'm hoping that we're not all going to run the same exact character through 5 separate games.
So real
Looking at
quick,
you, Connell.
let me preface this because maybe not everyone knows exactly what we're talking about. One thing that we've been kicking around is each of us doing like a one shot or something like that. It would not be a live broadcast. We would record it offline, and then we would upload it to our whoever's GMing would upload it to their respective channels. Now, that being said, on our respective channels, when we're players, we will be also creating those characters in a video for you folks to peruse, kind of get our ideas on how we're approaching the characters, things along those lines. So that kind of where this is, where this conversation is at and whatnot. And that's something. And then what we'll do is we'll probably post it on a Sunday, more than likely. The characters themselves will be posted before that, and then the actual play will be posted. It's probably going to be a couple hours, but we're going to post that online probably on Sunday, and the following Thursday we'll actually break down the game, things that we think even that as players that we could do better, and maybe even help tweak GM side. That's kind of what we're looking at, what we're looking at doing and whatnot. So just so everyone's kind of on the same page of what we're doing, because we sit here week after week talking about this, and Jade actually came up with this idea, which I definitely applaud him for. Let's put our money where our mouth is, basically, to kind of show everybody what we can do.
Unfortunately, most of you guys seen what I can do as a player on Bruce's campaign, which I do not apologize for.
Well, this will give you an opportunity to run something besides an archer.
There's a nice bridge. It's named Dan. It's a jump-off point to the next town.
Uh-huh.
As for next week, so there's something that's been on our board for a while, and we've kind of not touched it, and I think we've kind of come to that point where we can actually definitely go with this, and this actually may wind up being a couple week type thing, which is running an evil campaign.
Wait, that came out.
Yes. But truthfully, I mean, we've talked about it. I know a few other channels have done it, but I think the kind of grace periods are kind of off, are kind of expired on those. I foresee that, we should probably go ahead and go forward with that one if everyone else agrees.
I agree. I almost wish that we could buy the rights, the royalties to a song that was done years ago from Looking for a Group, because I just believe that would be the perfect intro into this discussion.
So a little bit of preface with that topic. This is actually something one of my friends, when I told them I was going to be doing live streams on Tablebreakers, they actually asked me, hey, can you bring up evil games as a topic, how to run an evil game? I don't know if they're still interested in it, or even if they're still watching, I'm not sure. I'll reach out to them when we decide to do this, though.
Yeah, I was on Biggest Geek is my first actual live stream appearance was because they wanted my input on an evil game. The game that I'm running, that I've been running 30 years, is actually an evil campaign, and I've got 30 years of experience of what to do and what not to do in the way of an evil campaign. And mind you, most of the characters, they went from lawful evil, chaotic evil, etc., to 30 years fast forward, and most of them are between neutral and chaotic good now. They learned their lesson, and it was the height of gaming for me when they came to me and said, what, we think we need to be good now. And I'm like, wow, I did it. I taught them that evil does not pay in the end. It doesn't. Maybe for other DMs, maybe other GMs will be like, yeah, you're the evilest of the evil, you win. No.
It's how you present your evilness. You don't go out and murder a town. You go out and buy land rights, and mineral rights, and water rights. Then you build up from there.
True evil, the evilest of the evil, will indulge in the evilest of evil acts, or they will not be the evilest of evil. You want to be low-grade evil, that's fine. I call that selfish. But if you want to succeed, you have to cross that line.
Okay, I'm going to pull you all back because we're starting to get into the topic already. So we're going to pull you all back. You all have a taste now. You all have a taste.
We have an idea. You, chat, are witness to seeing the birth, the inception of the plan, the machinish plan for next week.
If I didn't know he was married, I'd be worried.
No, just
Take
think about him,
Skeletor.
Just think about him doing that in bed.
I'm fucking Hero Lynn.
On that note,
I'm fucking Hero Lynn.
Okay.
How comfortable
On
is
that
your
note,
couch there,
take
Bruce?
us away, Skeletor.
So
All right,
I'm
everybody.
looking at next week. We're going to be talking about this. This is a topic that you guys are just all chomping at the bit for. Oh, you only got 7 days to wait, chat. Thank you so much for giving us at 1.14 viewers. And for those of you that are still here with us, I thank you so much.
Yeah, hit that like button. I'm showing only 4 thumbs up out of 10. Come on. Were your fingers broken?
Never mind.
Make sure you like, subscribe if you're not, and share. We definitely would appreciate that.
This is my only hand sight. Okay. Appreciate you all. And how would you like to escort us out for the night, sir?
Yeah, I'll take the keys. I want to thank everybody, as Bruce said, for being here tonight. It was a lovely conversation about how to deal with problematic characters. What we could have touched on maybe at a later date was, I see a stash. How do you deal with a problematic DM? Because they exist too. It's not just one-sided. Now, with that being said, next week we'll be talking about the building of Dr. Evil's plan of world destruction and things like that. I want to thank Bruce for hosting us, the man with the plan, the hands that love to paint, Jade, who is from parts unknown, living in the bottom of a tavern. He has my dream. Baron, who is he's just Baron. What more can I say? He's the only one of us with a title. Bastard.
My lord.
The Lord Baron of bullshit. I mean, Peoria bullshit. Whatever. Anyways,
yeah, same thing.
Shadow. He might not live in the darkness, but he does get a sunburn when he goes outside. Thank you for coming. And you got me, the Cigar DM, the chump with the mouthpiece with the chump. Wait, that didn't come out right, but that's all right. Now, everybody, remember 2 simple things. Roll your character sheets in the dark, and fuck the rest. Screw it. Good night.
For your information,
That's part of
every
YouTube
hand
history.
you've ever shook, male or female, has had a dick in it at one point or another. Until next time.